This lesson is on Chapter 4, and Chapter 4 is focused on the 4 facets of understanding. So it's the concept that understanding can be seen through various assessment types. If students can explain, interpret, apply, have perspective, emphasize, and have self-knowledge, which makes up the 6 facets, then students will be able to obtain the understanding of a subject. So I'm going to go a little bit in depth of each facet. Okay. Facet 1 is focused on explanation. Now, explanation has to do with a logically defensible theory. Students need to understand why and how one thing can relate to another. When students can show why what they say is true and they know how to prove it, they have a deeper understanding. So if you look at the graph up here, under realistic, it shows that it's a practical, scientific explanation. So students not only need to know why or how, but they need to be prepared to be able to explain away all counter arguments, arguments that critics may come up with, which is a huge part of the Common Core. Students are not just answering questions that are on the line, but they have to explain how or why they are right. Answering questions such as, why do you think that way, or why is this way wrong? By doing this, students are analyzing and they are synthesizing information. Facet 2 is focused on interpretation, and interpretation means that the students can connect what the class is talking about, the topic, to a real-world example. So stories make our lives more understandable, and students can connect a story to how it relates to the world around them. And a student should be able to explain why an event is significant and why certain data is important. Students need to be able to interpret existing ideas. So they need to take something that's existing and they need to make it clear. So existing ideas, and be able to interpret it their own way, in a way that clarifies the already existing ideas. But they're going to also interpret it the way that they want to. Everyone has a different meaning and interpretation of one thing. And so a student needs to be able to make sense of it, show the significance of, decode, make a story meaningful in order for it to come to their own personal interpretation. We see interpretation in the classroom when we have discussions of significance of books, discussions of works of art, past and present experiences, significance of results of data. Students are synthesizing, once again using that key word, synthesizing information given from the text, their own experience. The reader does their job interpreting the text as it means to them. Teachers should not tell the students how to think. Students need to come up with their own interpretations in order to find meaning and knowledge. Facet 3 is focused on application. So application is when students apply what they've learned in a way that they can create something, they can make something, they're physically doing something with the lesson and the knowledge that they've gained. And so that means that teachers have to create lessons that deal with issues that are relevant in today's world for the students to solve. We don't want to use something that doesn't apply to them because that's boring and lame sauce. So it's an emphasis on issues that the students have never seen before, authentic lessons. Now when I say authentic lessons, I mean lessons that they can write a letter to a company, or they can write a letter to the Senate on an issue that they really care about or they feel passionate about. Students are constantly self-assessing themselves with things that we love to call rubrics, what we've come to know and love. So with these authentic lessons, with these hands-on activities, with the students applying their knowledge, they have a deeper understanding of what they learned. Facet 4 is probably one of my favorite facets. It's one that I think that teachers need to work more with, and that is perspective. And obviously perspective means looking at things from different points of view. And in order to do that, teachers really need to come up with multiple activities for the students to be able to master this concept. Students need to understand all points of view on an issue or a subject, including their own. Where do they stand on the issue? By asking questions like, how would critics view this? Or how would someone who is against this theory, how would they view what I'm saying? Students need to answer these questions that they are anticipating on getting before they are asked. And by anticipating the argument, students are making sure that they understand all points of view on the issue. Now, teachers have the job of asking students to really think about what are they trying to accomplish and how did they distort their opposing ideas in order to prove that they were right. So perspective, I think, is extremely important, looking at things from different viewpoints. Facet 5 is focused on empathy. Now, empathy is the idea that you can feel and you have the ability to get inside another person's feelings, the way they view the world, how they react to situations. You all probably know the story of the Sneetches, which is written by Dr. Seuss, which teaches students about empathy, about putting themselves in other person's shoes. And teachers should be asking questions such as, why does an author want to convey a specific scene? Or why does an author want you to feel a certain emotion? Think about how the author wants you to feel for a character. How does that character feel? Students need to feel what they are reading. And when I read that, I took it as field trip. So I teach in Revere, so I was thinking about taking the students to Walden so that they could feel what's going on around them, so they have a better sense of what they're reading. Facet 6 is focused on self-knowledge, so that's pretty self-explanatory. And remember, I did say in the beginning of this that all these facets interconnect, they interweave, so if I seem like I'm repetitive, it's just because these facets have a lot of similarities between each other. So self-knowledge is understanding who you are as a person. So the students really need to understand who they are as a person. And they need to understand why they think a certain way about a specific topic. Now that's why I have this girl over here writing her journal. I think it's important for students to do some self-discovery. Writing obviously helps with that. There's also an emphasis on self-assessment. Them completely having control of how they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing, why do they see a topic that way. And students need to question why they see the world the way that they see the world in order to see beyond themselves. Students should also have an awareness of their own learning styles. Wouldn't that be nice? We all have students that ask us questions and they don't even know how they learn, so we have to kind of figure it out for them. And so it's kind of, if they know, if they're aware of how they learn, it will make our job a lot easier. So Facet 6, self-knowledge, is just basically focusing on the students understanding who they are, why they think the way they think, and how do they learn, how can they be the best learner, and really knowing themselves.